Hello, creative souls. Welcome to Kriscaz, the podcast. I am your host, Kriscaz. So I'm not sure about you, but I love a good NDE story. That is a near-death experience story, or some people even call them ADEs, after-death experiences, when people are literally declared dead and they have spiritual experiences on the other side, and then they come back to tell their story and what they experienced with us. And today we have a very special honor of welcoming Gianna Mauceri on our show. Now, I have known Gianna for a couple years now. She is a beautiful soul. She is a mentor, a healer, and the author of Soul of a Spirit Warrior, a true story of healing, survival, and resilience. She is also the author of the Spirit Warrior Oracle deck. She is just, when you just meet those people and you're like, how are you such a good person? Like, I don't know if you don't know what I'm talking about, maybe you're the good person. But, you just meet those special people every now and then, and their energy is so beautiful, and they're so magnetic, and they're just so special, they radiate. And that is what Gianna is. The first time I've done some photography work with Gianna, and I photographed her before. And I remember the first time I photographed her, and she was actually doing a live sound healing on, I think it was like a new moon ceremony, and I got to photograph it. And I remember watching her as I'm photographing it. The sun was setting, and we were, it was along the side of a bay, beautiful reflection bouncing off the water, and seeing her in her element with her sound bowls and doing her healing, and seeing everybody lying down and just receiving her medicine. And I remember thinking, she looks like an ancient angel. She really looked like just a very special, beautiful earth angel who's here to do the exact medicine that she is doing now in her work. I've also received some other healing sessions with her as well. And knowing her story now of her near-death experience and how that changed her life, I'm like, wow, to see the transformation that can happen to people when they get a glimpse of home, of what happens after we leave this place, of the place we all came from and the place we will all return to one day. And it's just really inspiring. And I love these stories because it, one, reminds me that something bigger feeling that I feel on the inside is real. It reminds me of home, and it puts things in perspective. Sometimes we can get really caught in our everyday life, and we let the shit like the bills and the kids stuff and our schedules and all these 3D things, we make it seem like it's the most important thing in the world, and we let it take over our lives. And it really separates us from our inner truth, the bigger purpose here. So that's why I love these stories. And it is very special for me to hear Gianna and to for this to be the place where she is coming to tell her tale. I also want to encourage you guys to pick up her book. All the links below to follow Gianna and to pick up her book are below. But I just want to introduce you guys and let you know that you're going to want to settle in and dive in deep because it is a beautiful story. And so here we go. Hello, Gianna. Welcome to Kriscaz, the podcast.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you. Not only are you like the sweetest soul sister and such an earth angel, and I'm so blessed to have you in my life, but also you have your little Pomeranian Freddie sitting in your lap, and he's just like a perfect angel.
He loves to be a part of everything, so he's joining us today.
Well, I learned today that he's a Leo, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yes, he's our little Leo, our little lion puppy.
Oh, he's so cute. So, Gianna, first of all, I'm honored that you're sharing your story. I've read about your story in your book. but I'm just honored to have this conversation with you and that you're sharing this with our listeners. I know it's a very special thing, one of the biggest things that's happened in your life. And just thank you, for being here. And
Thank you.
yeah, what you went through was something that eventually every single one of us are going to get to experience, the experience of beginning to cross over.
Yeah.
But you have an experience that very, very few people get to have. And that's the experience of coming back and remembering and then going on in this life with that story to tell. But if you could just share a little bit about, who you were and what your life was like pre the accident, pre the experience, so that we can get an idea of, like, the context of all this.
Yeah. Wow. Gianna before the accident. It really does feel like another lifetime ago. So I was a really busy hairstylist, actually. I had been doing hair for like 18 years, and I was just living this really busy lifestyle. Not only was I full-time hairdressing, but I was also teaching yoga part-time, and I was also very much in depth of like learning and going through trainings through the healing arts. So I also then had this like other little side job where I was offering Reiki in this beautiful temple, and sound healing and essential oil massages. So I was doing so many things. Don't recommend it, and that will be like for my closing today. I'm gonna probably tell everyone to slow down. But so that's what I was. I was living this really busy lifestyle, busy hairdresser, yogi, very active. And I had just moved from San Diego, from Ocean Beach up to Encinitas. So I was doing this like drive back and forth on the freeway for like a couple of weeks, where it just felt really intense for me. Like I don't know why, I can't explain it, but it was a feeling and a knowing that this wasn't good for me. This wasn't healthy for me, living this lifestyle, going back and forth and like teaching yoga down here and working up north and then spreading my time. It was all very sparse and I felt very overwhelmed by it. But I also had this feeling that I knew that maybe something was going to happen on the freeway. And so that was me leading up to it. Yeah. And
Mm.
so I'll tell you a couple little things that even happened, like that was giving me this vibe of like, I don't know if all this driving is good, but one night driving home really late, I got a flat tire right outside of my house. And it was just kind of like that sign, like I could have gotten that flat tire on the freeway or any. So it's kind of like warning me, like, you're lucky that this happened right outside of your house at this hour. And then, so got that all fixed up and then kept going, busy, 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 had places to go, people to see, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing was putting my key in the ignition and that breaking off. So it was just all these signs saying, like, stop driving on that freeway.
Wow, that's so interesting, and it makes me think of the concept of free will and how interesting that the universe, your guides, your angels were kind of giving you little warnings of like, hey, this could happen, this could happen. And I think we all experience little things like that in life, but we all, not that there's like a wrong way or the right way or anything.
No.
It's so much bigger than we can understand, but we do get to kind of choose, right?
Yeah.
Like what to do and what actions to take or
Yeah.
what to say no to.
It was definitely those little, I mean, I even get chills down my arms now just thinking about it, but it was definitely that little nudge, of like, slow down, slow down, slow down. And then me not listening, because being a human being, we don't think of stuff like happening like that to us. Like we just are like, like I said, I gotta live my life. I have a job. I gotta be at work. I gotta, do this. But there were places and spaces where I could have chosen, like you said, to slow down and to maybe limit um, how much I was doing at the time. So yeah, little nudges, little pokes.
Okay. So bring us to the night of the accident. You're driving home and it's late, correct?
Yeah, so it was 10 p.m. and I was driving home. I was at that time in a yoga teacher training, which again, I didn't need to be doing that. I'd already done like 5 yoga teacher trainings by that time. That was definitely one of those things I could have, limited. Um, but yes, I was driving home from yoga teacher training, which is OB, and driving home to Encinitas, which is north of the freeway, the five. And I hadn't been on the freeway for very long, and I noticed some headlights coming towards me. Um, and I did have like a moment to think, someone's driving the wrong way on the freeway. They must be like intoxicated, or I didn't think anything that they're going to hit me. I just had that awareness that someone was driving the opposite way, like toward me on the busy freeway. And the next thing, I woke up and my car was blocking the all 4 lanes of the freeway north, and I looked out my window and I just saw a trail blade of like headlights for miles. And I noticed that my car was blocking off the whole freeway. And then I looked down and I realized that that car had actually hit me. And I mean, my car was just a wreck at that point. Like the dashboard was sitting on my lap. Um, Flames were, crippling on the hood of my car, and I realized at that point that this was this was really bad. That like this is the worst thing probably that could happen to me in my life. Um, and so I started to pray at that moment because I realized how bad it was, and I also realized that I was stuck in the car, so my body was stuck. My arm was completely mangled, like looking down at that. It was like looking at a horror movie. My legs were stuck. So I went through fight or flight, and I realized, okay, I can't fight this. I can't leave. I've just got to be here. And I honestly thought that was when I was gonna the moment that I die. I was like, that was the thought that went through my head, is that this is how I die. And it was a really, really scary thought. So I just started to pray, and I prayed to God and to my angels, and just started to pray that I wanted to be here. I wasn't ready to go yet. It wasn't my time. Um, and I do remember that week leading up was a really challenging week for me mentally, emotionally. And I do want to mention this because I think this is important for listeners. Just being a human being in life can be challenging, and we go through our own like mental health struggles, and sometimes we do it alone. So I do want to talk about this part a lot, that leading up to it, I was feeling really depressed. I was like in a really dark space and very like judgmental of um, my body. I had body dysmorphia and just like really not being kind to myself. So in my prayers in that moment, I made a promise to God of like, I promise that I will love myself, and I promise I will love my body, because honestly, I didn't know how my body was going to come back from that. I didn't know the extent of my injuries at that time, but I knew that I was injured, um, and that it would probably take some time to heal. So yeah, in that space, in that time when I thought I was going to die, I just prayed and I made that promise that I would love myself and be kinder to myself,
Wow.
given the chance, given that second chance.
I
Um,
can't imagine. I mean, you're right. We do all go through those really intense, dark moments
mhm.
sometimes. And I'm sure, I've been there. Like, I'm sure the women listening have been there, and just imagining all of this like coming to a head, and how easily we can take life for granted. Not that there's like a judgment or shame on being in that place by any means,
Not at
but
all.
just how quickly the important things can come to the surface when you're faced with in a literal life or death situation.
Yeah, like everything. You're like, oh my gosh, like why have I been taking this for granted? Or yes, everything flashed before my eyes.
From there, I'm assuming help came. Were you conscious? Did you lose consciousness? How did that look for you in the moments
I was
following?
going in and out of consciousness, and that in and out of consciousness was taking me to that place that was really safe with my angels. So I would see my car burning in flames and I would freak out and this is how I'm going to die. And then I was taken into this place, like I call it my higher self space, where a voice would say, no, you're not. You're not going to die. You're going to get out of the car. And they would show me, my angels would show me getting out of the car safely, being put on a stretcher, and being taken to the hospital. That's the vision that they kept showing me in that space. And then that kind of kept going back and forth, where I would come back to the human realm where I'd be like, my car's burning, I'm going to die. And then I would continuously be pulled up and shown like, no, you're going to get out of here. Exactly what they had showed me, my angels getting out safely, getting the stretcher, going to the hospital, happened. It took about an hour. I had to wait for it in real time, but it did happen, and they got me out. And then when we got to the hospital, I was placed in an induced coma, which I was in this coma for a week, and I didn't know that. Um, I didn't know that at all. But that's when I had my real, like, kind of profound experience, if you will.
Well, first of all, did you say you were in the flaming car for an hour?
I was in the car for an hour after they got the flames out,
Oh
which
my gosh.
randomly happened. Like that's another story throughout this, which is a civilian just showed up in his truck and happened to have a fire extinguisher to put the fire out in my car before the fire team came. It just took them so long. So if that civilian hadn't shown up with a fire extinguisher, I probably would have died in the car that night.
I can't imagine sitting there and going through that. And I don't have an experience like this by any means, but I have had a traumatic experience, and the angels kept bringing me comfort too. And I cannot imagine having to sit there for that amount of time, be a human, be in the human realm for that waiting. So, wow, my heart goes out to that you in that moment. So you get to the hospital, they put you in a induced coma. When does your near death experience begin?
I go into a coma, and for me, the world that I am in, I call it the in-between realm, um, is Venice, Italy. So I find myself just pondering and wondering down these canals of Venice, Italy, and I'm really familiar. I've been to Venice before, so it's a really familiar place to me. So I kind of wasn't surprised that I was there. I was really healthy body in this space, and I knew that. I knew that back on Earth, I was really injured. Um, but in this space I was healthy bodied, so I started doing things like running around, headstands, yoga poses, because I knew that I didn't know if I would be able to, I didn't know what state my body was in, so I took advantage of this and just felt really free in my body there. Um, and I was walking with, which felt like a really long time through these canals, and it was really beautiful. Whenever there was kind of like something would come to a dead end, it would just magically open up and create more canals for me to just keep walking. And it felt really magical down there, and I felt really happy and safe. I didn't feel afraid or scared, or I'd never questioned like why am I in the Venice canals? Like, it wasn't like that. I was in this really free body where no attachments to all the stuff that we attach here, to worry, to fear, to doubt, um, to other people. And there was none of that. There was not even any questions. It was just like, here I am, enjoy this, like, be here. So that's the space that I was in. It was really beautiful. There was really magical. There was music. I could hear violins in the distance. And that place just felt really safe and easy. Um, and then all of a sudden, it became a little bit more intense, and the violins in the distance became louder, and the sounds became louder, and I started to lift up and be pulled up. And the higher up I got, the more that my body became just a little flicker of light. So I was like rising all the way up, or being pulled up by something, into the cosmos. So now I'm in like this cosmos, which was, it looked like the cosmos. It had like beautiful stars everywhere, and like lights and Saturn, and it was beautiful. And I was a light, and I felt no pain or anything in my body. I just felt amazing. Um, and all of a sudden, I started to see some other lights come towards me. They started out small at first, and the closer they got to me, like the bigger they got to me. And they kind of came into vision. You know, when you like tune into something like a magnify, what are those, telescope, or you like you get that you finally get the sweet spot, and you're like, oh, I see it now. That's how it felt. And they appeared, and they were angels. And they felt like angels to me because they had wings, each of them. Um, there were 7 of them. 2 of them came by my side, and the 5 of them were before me. So we're kind of like in a circle, if you will. Um, and they were massive. They were so big, these angels. Um, that's when people are like, what do they look like? They were so big. I can't explain it. Like, they were just these giant beings. And to me, they looked like soldiers or warriors. They had armor on, very like ancient beings. Um, and the 2 by my side, the one on the right side, I recognized immediately because I had had connection with this angel in the past, and it was Archangel Michael. Um, and he had come to me prior in a vision a few years prior, when I was going through a really tough time in my life. I was going through a divorce, and it was just a really challenging time. And he had come to me in a vision, and I remember he came to me and put his hand on my head, um, and he told me that he was going to protect me and everything would be okay. And I didn't really understand that message that much at the time. But seeing him again, I made that connection. I'm like, okay, I know who this being is. I know who this angel is. Um, and
Could at this point, could you see like any details of their faces of did they look the same? Did they look different? They were just like kind of glowing or
yeah, they were like, for me, when I tune into the vision, it's like, it's not like facial features like we see here on Earth. Like, I couldn't tell you like, oh, you had brown hair or blonde hair or anything like that. It's different. Um, and they were light beings too. So for me, they were like almost like glowing golden light. And the most features I remember is more about their armor and how big their wings were, and just how giant they were. And there was like a difference between each of them, but it's hard for me to explain that. Um, is
In the human language.
Yeah, it's just like
In a human language. It's
it's more of
probably difficult. How do you put angels in like this
a,
brain? I don't know. It's too much.
yeah, but very masculine,
Mm.
very masculine. Um,
Did they communicate with you?
yes, but not through words like we use here, like we're talking like this on Earth. It's more of a knowing and a feeling. It was like, it's almost like I just had to think of something and they already knew. It was an understanding. Um, yeah, it was just like not words, but a feeling and a sense, a sensation of expression. They knew how I felt. I didn't have to like explain anything to them. Um, and when I came back with questions, like it's not even like I had to ask the question. They knew what I was there for to ask, you know. Um, so I try to describe them as best as I can, and that's how I feel about them. Very, very masculine.
I
Um,
I love the idea of it being like this telepathic, but not even with words, just with feeling and knowing. And
yeah,
it's funny because, being an intuitive woman and working with other women, you try to explain what it feels like to have an intuition.
yeah,
And I feel like we want communication to be so much clearer sometimes. We're like, oh, I just had this feeling that this is what I'm supposed to do in my life, or I'm supposed to go down that direction. But then we start doubting it because it's not delivered in like, an angel doesn't show up at our door and just like deliver a voice message that we can hear audibly. We just
like
feel it in our hearts.
in front of you. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's just reassuring to hear that.
Yeah, and I love that you bring that up actually, because it is true. Like when we're in sessions, like I know that you do energy work as well, and I do too, and it is like that. It is like, how do I explain it? Like what I'm doing here, or what I'm, working on when I'm working, and how it feels for me in my body to express that back to them of what I'm feeling from them. And it is interesting because we do live in a world where things have to be structured and analyzed and real, but what's real? It's like, what is real? And
What is real? I've heard it called the language of the soul, and I really like that.
I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That resonates with me, and that's what it felt like. If Yeah, that's like the perfect words to describe it is like the language of our souls. Like I didn't have to use words in that realm. It was a feeling. And I always want to say, like, I always point to my belly when I say that, because it was like this intuitive connection almost from my belly in a way. I don't know.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So that was Michael. He was here on my right side. And then on my left side was Archangel Raphael. And that was an angel that like I had heard about, I know about, but don't I never really had that connection or anything. So he explained to me that he is here. He's going to be by my side. He's going to help me to heal, to do that deeper healing in my body, but also my heart. He was there for my heart, and I do really remember him, like my heart feeling an expansion when I was with Raphael. Um, and both of those angels are just so masculine. I don't know how else to explain it, but the other five angels in front didn't feel that strong or like they were more like ascended masters in a way, where they were angels. I could see their wings. They were old. They felt really ancient. Um, but I don't know, it could have been anyway. Like they could have been masculine or feminine to me. I don't have a label for that or for them, because again, it was all very much like they're light beings. Um, and they were my guides. They had been my guides for my whole entire life, that had been with me. Um, and yeah, from them there was no gender. There, it was all gender or non-duality. It was all with one, like all one that is.
I've heard that before about angels and how some might carry the more masculine energy, some might carry the more feminine, but it has nothing to do with being a man or woman. It's just like the dual energies of the universe that make up everything.
Yeah,
But some are just very neutral. And I've even heard, and tell me if you've heard of this too, that with Archangel Gabriel or Archangel Gabrielle, some people experience Archangel Gabriel as a woman, and some people experience his energy as more masculine. Have you had that experience at all?
it felt, yeah, that is interesting about Gabriel, because I see Gabriel as a woman. Um,
So
but
do I.
you do?
I do. And it's funny because when I was a teenager, I got confirmed Catholic, and they make you pick like a saint and I was so stuck on Gabriel, and I went up and the bishop is like, "What's your name?" And I said, "Gabrielle." And so I took the name Gabrielle, and
I love
but I remember his face like, "You mean Gabriel?" But later on, once I developed a relationship with that angel, I experience her as a feminine energy.
Yeah, it's true, because there are other angels that I have like read about or come through where I have been for sure that's like a feminine angel. And then I look it up and it's, you know, it's moving towards the masculine energy. So yeah, I have heard that, and that is what I experienced. Like I definitely felt like Michael and Raphael were for sure this really, really strong masculine energy. The others, they were like, yeah, they were gender neutral, which is very popular these days.
Yeah. They're ahead of the times. We're just
They
catching up.
were
We're
ahead.
there. um so you're there with these angels, with your guides that have been with you. What are they there to communicate to you?
Okay, good questions. They're here to communicate with me that I had been in a severe car accident, and I was very injured, severely injured, and that I had a choice if I wanted to go back to my body on earth, to me, to this body, to Gianna, to her life, or not, to move forward from this lifetime. And so I had this choice. They were offering me a choice to stay there with them or to go back. And um that felt like a really big choice, actually. So they sent me back down to the canals to decide. There was no time limit or anything on this. They're just like, all of a sudden, bam, back down to the canals. So I'm walking the canals, and these are the times where I start to, really tune into that. Is this the, like, do I want to go back to life? What starts to happen is like just parts of my life playing out like a movie, like showing me times in my life where I um just going through certain times of my life like a movie. Like, here's the time where you were amazing. Here's all the times you shine. Here's all the love you give to the world. Here's all your gifts you have. And then times where I like wasn't seeing that or didn't recognize, or maybe times where I um didn't allow myself to shine because I didn't believe in myself and I didn't love myself enough. And so they were just kind of like showing me how far I had actually come on my journey, and um, just how how amazing of a job I was doing in my life, when all of this time I thought I was just, failing at everything, and, depressed and in my own little bubble of like self sabotage of, you know, how far I had come in my life from that. And I just kept seeing all these little glimpses of my life, and, my family, and things that brought me joy, and just showing me my life on a whole. And then, of course, it would become intense, and the violins would become very intense again. And that's when I would feel myself being pulled back up. And they knew that I had questions, and I did. I was, what happens if I stay here? Like, do I just stay here the whole time in the realm in Venice, like walking these canals? What happens? And so what I understood from them was, you will, like, it'll be like a reset. You'll start again. You'll start a new incarnation, your new life. You're planning for this next incarnation. We'll do it together. New set of rules. New set. Well, I don't like saying rules, but new set of life planning. Really, that we would start to plan the next incarnation.
So
Or
just to be clear,
yes,
they're saying if you choose to not go back to your life as Gianna, that if you stayed, that's all what was going to happen.
yeah, if
Okay.
I don't go back to, if I choose to
Wow.
go back, that I would incarnate. So I wouldn't stay in these canals forever. I would reincarnate into a new life, into a new body, into a new person, and we would begin this process again. um or
Was-
you have come this far, and you've come a long way. Continue the work that you're doing in this earth, in this body, in this life.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, no
During
big deal, right? Just
no big deal. Just life and everything.
the only other thing I could feel, though, which was interesting, is like every now and then I would tap back into my body on earth, and I could hear the beepings of the machines in the hospital. I could hear, like, there was one of my friends that came to see me in the ICU, and I heard her. I could hear her bawling her eyes over me. Um, and then, like, later on, I asked her, I'm like, "Did you come? Were you crying?" And she, yes, that did happen. So those were just my three kind of outlets. I couldn't feel, I didn't know if there was a heaven. For me, in fact, the cosmos kind of felt like heaven. Um, Yeah. Even though it was dark in the cosmos,
That's
it
beautiful.
it felt like that's kind of where I felt like I was being pulled up to, was heaven.
I love that. When I was a little girl, I was just talking to my husband about this story, but I used to have this old, like 1980s Hubble telescope photo of all the cosmos, and I was obsessed. I really would fixate on things and like study them really hard. And I would, when I was like 8, and like putting little post-it tabs on the pages I really liked. And I remember looking at the pictures of the cosmos, and I heard so clearly, I didn't think it was weird at the time, but I heard so clearly home
Oh,
as I was looking at the cosmos. It was so cool, and it still sticks with me today.
yeah. Yeah, it definitely felt heavenly in that space. And I was a light in that space. I was a light being. For me, going back to the cosmos did feel like going home. Yeah, it felt safe there.
So, as you're deciding, are you getting any glimpses into the future if you do decide to stay?
No, no glimpses into the future of what my incarnation would be. For me, what I understood was that would take planning. We plan that before we come here. And that's one other thing that I wanted to mention, and I forgot to mention that when I was in the car, when the accident initially happened, I remembered this being part of my plan. So for me, when it happened and I woke up in the car, I was actually not in shock that I was in the accident. I actually remembered. I was like, oh my gosh, this is that part. Almost again, like going back to a movie playing out. It's like, oh my gosh, that's right. This is where the accident happens in the movie. But it was like my life. And so I remembered that this was going to be part of the my life. And people would be like, "Well, why would you plan that?" Wow. Well, there was just so many lessons that came from it. Like that had to happen in my life in order for me to be where I am now and to be doing the work that I'm doing now. I work with people in trauma. My purpose is to work and help people who have been through trauma, any kind of trauma in their life now. That's my purpose. From that, had that not have happened, I wouldn't fully truly be living my purpose or know how to guide others through something so deep and uh, healing. So for me, when people are like, well, why would you plan something so traumatic to happen in your life? It all has to do with my purpose and
Wow.
what I came here to do. And I wouldn't have been able to do this unless I experienced it for myself.
Wow. That's so profound. So you decide to come back. What was that like?
Um, it was really fucking scary. It was really scary. Yeah,
Do you
waking up.
remember the feeling of coming back into your body?
I do remember the feeling. It was very panicky. It was like when you're like pushed, you're in water and um, you're like in the ocean. If you go down really deep into the ocean and then you start losing your breath, so you're like, gotta go back up. And it's like taking that breath when you get up. You're like, and just feeling all of the rush in your body, or in my body was how it felt. And it was just really emotional. Just like I remember just waking up and like almost being in a panic and just trying to figure out where I was and what had happened. I thought it was the next day when I woke up. And my family was all there. My family lives in Australia, all of my family. So I was so confused because I thought it was the next day when I woke up. Um, I was just so confused how they got there so fast. But I'd actually been in that coma for a week, and this was all happening and all processing over that week. That's why I felt like I was walking those canals for so long. But yeah, waking up was scary, and my family was there. I had to put all the pieces together and figure out that I'd been out for a week. Um, I was really worried about my clients that I had scheduled the next days. I was like, you've got to call my clients. You got to call. I was still a hairdresser in the salon, and it was Saturday, so it was like my busiest day. And I'm like, call my clients. That was one of the first things I remember saying, and my brother was like, "It's cool, sis. We got it covered." Um,
Taking care of business from a
yeah,
coma.
yeah. But after that initial like fear, where am I? Went away, I actually felt elated. I was in the most joyful place, and I felt the closest to God that I had ever felt in my whole life, because of that experience. And I felt and still feel to this day Archangel Michael and Archangel Raphael by my sides. And yeah, I woke up and I told my family the whole thing that happened, and they fully just were so immersed in the experience and the story with me. And I had always been like kind of like that little weird sister, like the little weird child that's like she talks to angels and loves crystals, and I think they always kind of thought I was a little bit off with the fairies. but now they fully know I'm off with the fairies, and they fully are in it and love it. And
I love it. Off with the fairies. I've never heard that. I'm going to start using that.
that must be an Australian saying.
You've come back. You
Yes,
have to recover physically from your coma, but
yes,
you have this sense of feeling elated and close to God. So as you're recovering and you're going through, I mean, the trauma, the
yeah.
physical trauma of going through, what you'd been through, what was that experience like for you?
Oh, I mean, the body stuff was so hard to deal with. I was very injured. Um, I couldn't feel or move my legs at all, which is really, really a scary feeling. The whole right side of my body was broken. I had a fracture in my spine. My colon was punctured. So my stomach was cut open and operated on. It was stapled back together. It was so horrific to look at. Honestly, my whole body was so horrific to look at. I just, all I could do is just give myself love, because remember, I was saying before this, serious body dysmorphia, hated my legs, all these things that I just didn't like about my body had shifted in such a positive, beautiful way. Even though now looking down at my legs, they were like black and blue and stapled together everywhere. And I have metal in my leg now, and they were so fat and blown up, and my foot was like a big fat thing. I couldn't have loved my body more. And for me, that was one of the greatest lessons, was all about self-love. My own personal journey through healing and trauma was all about coming back to loving and accepting myself, loving and accepting my body the way that it is. And especially like for women, we fluctuate in our weight and things change as we get older, and it just is a progression. And like being able to love myself through all stages of that now is, that's so important to me. And that message is so important to me, but also to share that with other women as well. Um, and so that was my own kind of personal journey, was like loving myself. I would never speak to myself the way that I did like before the accident. I learned a lot from that. and and yeah, and it is important to help others through that. That's one of the most important things when people have been through trauma, is like, is grief, is grieving the way that we used to be. And I was a very active yoga instructor. I was a hairdresser. You just, when you're active like that, you don't even think about like what would happen if my leg broke, or if I couldn't walk for the next year, or if I had to be in a wheelchair. All of those things were really humbling to me. I had to get very fucking humble very quickly, because I couldn't not do a lot of stuff. I needed help in so many. I needed help to just go to the bathroom, and
Wow.
that like humbled the fuck out of me. Like,
Did it ever cross your mind like, oh, wow, this is hard and I chose this? Damn. Like, did you ever have those human feelings?
oh yeah, 100%. Every day. I mean, every moment. That's why when people are going through stuff now, trauma, I'm like, it's not even like a day to day thing. People are like, one day at a time. It's like minute to minute. I felt, you know, very unstable at times, because I did go through feelings of like feeling completely grateful and elated to be here for my life and like all of that. But then there were those moments where I was like, what the fuck, like why me, like why, how, like what. um
I
so
feel like
yeah.
once you know what home is, it's like, I mean, there's no comparison.
Yeah. So there were really challenging times throughout that. It took a very long time for my body to heal. There was so much frustration. along the way. Even now, still, like yesterday, I took my dog out for a walk, and if I'm not being mindful, walking can be really challenging because I have a metal rod in my leg, and like if I move certain ways, and yesterday it was really hurting on this walk, and that can be frustrating because you're like, I'm just going out for a walk with my dog, like not even trying to like go and do a triathlon here. I'm just walking my dog, and it's painful for me. And yeah, so stuff comes up there.
So you're back, you're floating between being incredibly grateful you had this experience, you're close to God, but also, damn, you're a human again, you know, feeling all that experience. Why do you think, like, what's the point? You know, what do you think you came back for? What is the good stuff? What's the secret in all this?
For the work that I do now, and the way that I get to help people now who have been through really intense trauma like this, that feels so rewarding for me to do this work. So now that I look back, so say it's been like 8 years, it'll be 8 years this year. I have opened my wellness center where I am helping people, and I work in a community of other people that help people. And that for me just alone feels kind of like rewarding. Where I'm like, thank you that I get to help people in this way, and thank you that I get to be here to help people in this way. But one of the main things that I really wanted here in my life was to experience love. And yes, that had to come through myself first. I had to like really learn to love all parts of myself first. That was one part of my journey. But I really wanted a partner in this lifetime. Wanted a soulmate. I really wanted like that true fucking love, like the love that other people look at and they're like, "Ooh, they're so gross, but they're so amazing and beautiful and inspiring together." I wanted that.
I love it. And you got it.
Yeah, I wanted that in my life. And so for me, like looking back now, I'm like, ah, wow, I wouldn't have changed anything or done anything different. Um, because yeah, I found my love. I found my love within myself to get to really live and enjoy life. And I met my soulmate. And like, that's amazing to me that I get to now experience this next part of my life in a healthy body with the person that I absolutely love and just get to experience life with. So I think for me, that's the point. It's like when I look back now, I'm like, if
Love.
someone had have told me, yeah, it was all love. It was like a love story. But first, like I had to love me and learn to love all parts of me in that way unconditionally, um, so that I would accept that kind of love from somebody.
Wow.
Because
That's
I would never
beautiful.
have accepted that kind of love from anybody before because I wasn't giving it to myself. Um, so
Mhm.
yeah, it was all for love, sister. I
You're living a love story.
I do. I feel like
So,
I am every day. I get to wake up, and I do feel like I'm living that love story. And my little babies, and I thank my angels every day for that experience. And
yeah.
it is a profound experience, and the more I talk about it and share it, the more I'm really just see how profound it was. And I'm just grateful to be here to share this story and share this message. And I hope that anybody listening can take, what they want from it, as in, that self-love piece. And if you are working through anything like that on your healing journey, just remembering that you're loved, and it's,
And
all
slow down. Don't forget about that one.
that was the biggest. That was
You want to
the
know what's
message
funny?
I had for the outside world. My personal message was that self-love, but the message to give to the outside world is like, slow down. If you're going, just slow down. See where you can soften.
So I have your card deck, the Spirit Warrior Oracle deck, and I pulled 3 cards for myself before we got on. And the first one I pulled was Slow Down.
I pulled that yesterday. My
I
Danny
pulled
has
Slow
that.
Down. Yeah. Is it like sacred time and intuition?
Oh.
So maybe those 3 words can mean a little something to everybody listening. Slow down, sacred time, and intuition. Gianna, you're an incredible entrepreneur. You have your wellness center. You are the author of the book Soul of a Spirit Warrior.
Yeah.
You have your beautiful Oracle deck, and we're going to be linking everything below, including your Instagram, so people can find you and experience sessions with you. You guys, Gianna's helped me through with different types of sessions, and you're just such a beautiful, like powerful, but in the most gentle way.
Hmm.
You're such a beautiful healer. There's a lot of women who listen to this who feel the call, who have the voice inside them calling them towards contributing to this world through their work.
Mm-hmm.
Being a woman who is so beautiful and connected to her spirituality and God and her angels, but also an entrepreneur, do you have any quick advice or message or words of encouragement that you could share with these women?
Yeah, I would just say, like, just to trust yourself, trust your intuition, trust the guidance that you've been given, and just try everything. Like, that's like, just try everything, and if it doesn't work out, try again. That's what I've been doing for the last like 10 years of my life now, since the accident happened, is just keep putting myself out there, keep trying again. If there's something that you have a calling to that's really, really strongly pulling you, um, create create some space for it, create time for it, and just really um, don't let all of those limiting beliefs get in our way, and show up, do the work. Though it's powerful when we show up for ourselves, we show up for everybody else in our lives. And so that's all I did for these um past 10 years, is just I was so codependent on showing up for other people. The lesson was, show up for yourself, show up for yourself. The more you show up for you, the more that we are able to sprinkle that light and show up for other people. So just
I love that. That's so powerful. The more
hmm
we show up for ourselves, the more we can show up for other people.
yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing your beautiful story with us and your beautiful heart with us and your beautiful Pomeranian with us. Thank you so much, Gianna.
You're so welcome. I love you, Christina. I just think you are so amazing. You have just come into my life these past few years and just been such a light. You're so inspiring, and I just adore you so much. You're literally like one of my favorite people in this world. So thank you.
Thank you so much, love. I love you
Real
so
cry.
much. No cry. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We hope that this podcast fills your heart with love, gives you a new perspective, and we hope that you have a wonderful day.
Yay. Thank you.